A while back, we had some requests from our viewers for one of us here at D&D Daily to go ahead and audition to be part of Angel Art's Ready Persona 1 campaign. Well, I went through that audition process and we are beginning a game. Part of that game is that we are using a new system that is not D&D 5e. Now, my whole RPG background comes from D&D 5e, so being able to try a new system has been pretty interesting. Now, the system that we are using is Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition, and I wanted to share my initial impressions of that system from the perspective of a D&D 5e player. Right off the bat, I gotta say, you feel powerful in Mutants and Masterminds. There's power levels that can change you from being crazy amazing to relatively weak, and the power level that we're playing 2 different characters, is power level 5 and power level 10, and it maximizes at power level 20. So even my strongest character is still half as strong as what your characters can be. And this character that is half as strong as what a character can be really feels like it's more powerful than a 20th level character in D&D, which is for better and worse. So for example, I am able to make 3 attacks a turn as if I had multi-attack, but if I kill one of my enemies, I get to use my multi-attack again, and that chains infinitely. And that sounds like, okay, yeah, that's kind of broken a little bit, but what if you don't kill anyone? But in Mutants and Masterminds, your enemies are either considered a villain or a henchman. And henchmen have 1 HP. So essentially, if I hit one of their henchmen and I have like a plus 17 to hit, if I do 1 damage to any of those 3, then I get to do 3 more attacks, and then 3 more attacks, and then 3 more attacks. Not to mention, on top of that, I am able to put a modifier on my initiative that is like plus 15. It could even be crazier, it could be plus 20. So I basically have like a plus 18 to my initiative roll. And so I'm very likely to go first. So it is statistically likely for me to start the match and kill all of the minions and then still have an action to begin on the villain, which is pretty insane. I think my DM is going to tune that back a bit, and I completely agree with that decision, but it is as written. I can do what I was doing, which is pretty insane. Now, that might sound like it isn't a lot of fun, but it actually kind of is. Being this overpowered is pretty interesting and kind of a new experience, and I suppose the DM can always throw out crazier enemies, but to put it in perspective, I have half a mile of movement speed per round. So 30 feet from D&D over to half a mile, and it's all teleportation movement. And I can break it up however I want. I'm not doing the math, but I can cast like 60 Misty Steps a round. So there's nowhere I can't be on the battlefield. It's absolutely bonkers. But yeah, as I was saying, it is just really fun to be this crazy powerful. And the secondary character I have, I built quite weak, you know, it's a very flavorful build. I give it minuses in a lot of places, and they're more focused on using gadgets than they are on using superpowers. So it does have a range, but it really is that superhero fantasy. It really is the comic book idea where you're this incredibly powerful being, and leveling up is totally less of a thing in Mutants and Masterminds. So you kind of choose your power level, and you're probably going to stay there for the whole campaign. You don't really develop, which is something that makes me think that Mutants and Masterminds is more designed for short-term campaigns, you know, a couple months as opposed to a 2-year extended campaign. I think D&D's format fits that better. But I do think some amazing stories and some amazing moments can be found in Mutants and Masterminds. And I will say about Mutants and Masterminds that you can really build anything. It has a very flexible character building model. I basically built a teleporting Blink Blade Paladin, and the reason I chose that character is I feel like the Blink Blade playstyle is pretty difficult to pull off in D&D and is severely limited until around level 11, where your Horizon Walker can kind of start becoming a Blink Blade. So I need to do a Blink Blade build as best as I can, but I will put out there that I think Blink Blades is a playstyle that D&D 5e does not support very well. So I chose to play it in Mutants and Masterminds, and bam, I am a crazy Blink Blade. And it's a ton of fun being able to play that playstyle that I haven't been able to do in D&D. So getting into some more of the details is that Mutants and Masterminds is probably more of a complex game. It's pretty interesting because you roll the hit, and then there's a hit, and then you roll to see if they resist the damage. So it starts out by saying, okay, I'm going to try and stab them with my sword. Does the sword hit them? Okay, now does the sword pierce the skin? There's a second question. It's not just hit, it's hit and does it do damage? On top of that, there is a cap, and this cap has been the most complicated thing for me to wrap my head around. That I am power level 10, and so my 2-hit modifier and my damage modifier cannot equal double my power level. So that means if my 2-hit modifier is 15, the maximum amount of damage I can do is 5. And so you have this relationship where you have to sacrifice one thing in lieu of another. And I found that really weird, that it's like, okay, so the better I am at stabbing you with my sword, the less damage you take. Like, my head doesn't wrap around it very well, but I understand mechanically why it needs to be there, because we could put 1,000,000 points into just our 2-hit and damage, and then put on teleportation in the blink, and we can just kill everything instantly. So I get it, but it is weird, and it is weird to wrap your head around. It would be the equivalent, you know, if there would be a maximum of 10 points in Constitution and Dexterity, and you had to choose between them. So 5 points in Constitution, 5 points in Dexterity, 8 in Constitution, 2 in Dexterity. It's kind of that same feeling, and it's really weird to wrap your head around. Alright, that's kind of my take on Mutants and Masterminds. I've played only a couple games in it, so I'm not going to say anything definitive, but I'm just giving my initial impression. Overall, I think, just to summarize, it's like, yeah, it's fun. I think it would be fantastic for kind of shorter built campaigns than like these long, super extended ones. And that's kind of my initial take on it. I don't know, have any of you played Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition? If so, tell me your thoughts. And if not, tell me whether or not it sounded interesting to you. We are D&D Daily. We release new D&D content every single day, so if that's interesting to you, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you on the next one. Peace!